How are you feeling today, and are you rattled in any way?
Yeah, I was rattled yesterday. It's not a very pleasant experience at all. But no, you have to carry on and get on, do your work. You mustn't give in to these people. No, it's a very small minority, and they most certainly don't represent the overwhelming majority of people who voted leave in the referendum. And I think it's really important that we see them for what they are. It's a very small, very unpleasant criminals bunch, a mob who have been roaming around Westminster, breaking the law for the last about a month or so.
Well, you
The
have to
problem is
make...
really the police should have intervened. That's the problem.
Oh, are you
That's the problem.
disappointed in the police?
Oh, yeah, they made a big error. And it's not just me, of course. I mean, in December, they chased after the BBC reporter Laura Koonsberg, and they held abuse at her. I don't know how Kay Burley from Sky does it, to be truthful, because the volume and the nature of the abuse, which was obscene abuse before Christmas against her, Faisal Islam was subjected to racial abuse in December. And yesterday, a police officer was subjected to racist abuse from some of these people, who then went on to call me a Nazi, which I find deeply, deeply offensive, and I don't think that's acceptable.
Okay, a number of things there. If it was me, I think I would think about twice about crossing the road from the Palace of Westminster over to that green. Do you think twice? Will you think twice about crossing the road?
I think the Met now will do their job. I just think their view is that we don't intervene. So they stand and they watch it, but they wouldn't intervene. And I think they get that it must be right, no matter who you are. You should be able to go about your lawful business. I don't have a problem, as you know, with a good, robust debate. Especially my constituents to say what they want to.
Well, look, I've known you for many years, and there's a lot I know about you, and you can take a lot and you can dish a lot out and whatever, and I think you'll say a lot is fair in love and war. But how do I connect you? How do we connect you? How do they connect you to being a Nazi and a fascist? Are you even aware what in their warped minds the connection is?
Apparently, I am told. It's difficult not to laugh at this point. It's actually not funny. It's just so mad, I suppose, deranged. Apparently, the European Union was Adolf Hitler's plot and his idea. And that on that basis, because I support our membership of the European Union, I'm a Nazi. I know. It's a tough one to comprehend.
Okay.
So we move swiftly on because it's just the stuff of...
All right, but if there are people who speak so strongly, without dismissing what they've done is wrong, but they obviously feel very, very strongly, so strongly to say what they said, does that in any way make you think that or respect their point of view and say, look, if they feel so strongly to say what they've said, maybe they have a point in some way?
No, this is a mob. It's a bunch of bully boys, and they want to close down the debate. They want people like me that they don't agree with to shut up, and they want broadcasters going about doing their lawful business to stop doing it. So not only are they odd, but they're also thugs. So I'm really not interested in their views. Now, the views of the majority, overwhelming majority of my constituents, and beyond that, absolutely. Always want to hear their views. But these people aren't even from my constituency, and I'm touching wood wildly to say that they don't exist in my constituency because we're decent, moderate, sensible people in Broxtown.
I bring up something that I've experienced season after season, time after time, when I visit football grounds. And I look at men who are the same age as myself, right, mid-50s into their 60s, and we saw it at Chelsea. I've seen it at Reading. I've seen it at Cardiff. I've seen when the away team, in my case Manchester United, score a goal, and some unsuspecting parent with their child stands up and cheers. Men my age rounding on them. Now,
I know.
whether I agree or disagree with you or anyone does on Remain or Brexit, I don't want to break a bottle over your head. I don't want to be abusive beyond belief to you. But there is in this country today, it's like all bets are off. There's a lot of hate out there.
No, but you're right, but that's because the whole tone has changed. Some of that has been through the print media. I don't think particularly through the broadcast media, but through the print media. So you may remember just over a year ago, the Daily Telegraph ran a headline that said that we were mutineers. Another newspaper actually called the Prime Minister, questioned whether she was a traitor. There's a payoff when you start to up the language in that way, you up the temperature, and you also make it acceptable for people to use language and behave in a way that is not how we do things in Britain traditionally, and we shouldn't. And actually, it's really interesting you're talking about football matches, because I too go and watch football. I have to say, at the very bottom of the bottomest leagues, I'm a season ticket holder at Notts County. Of course, it's nothing other than a very pleasant experience. Well, apart from the standard of the football, which is not very good this season. But in all seriousness, I'm old enough, Eamonn, to remember the days when we had a real problem with football hooliganism.
Yeah.
And the police have got the powers, they've got the skills, they've got the ability to be able to manage these things in such a way you keep crowds safe and you police it so that you don't exacerbate things, but you keep law and order. And what's happened outside of Westminster in the last 6 weeks is the police have got the powers, they know how to do things, but they've lacked the will to intervene. And you have to arrest people, as you and I will understand, to keep law and order. And that's what's been lacking. It's just they've been standing back and just letting it happen. Whatever you think about me, it's not acceptable for Kay Burley, Faisal Islam, the BBC, anybody to put up with that level of abuse. They can't do their work, if nothing else. And it is intimidating.
Anna, really interesting points you make. I just want to put it to you. Is calling somebody a Nazi a hate crime? And if it is a hate crime, where do we draw the line on freedom of speech? And as an immigrant, as my parents were immigrants in this country, being born through the 70s, 80s, 90s, this kind of behaviour, I'm not saying that it's right to put up with it, but the police, throughout my life anyway, they just don't really take it that seriously. So now that this has happened to you as an MP, what do you think the police should do? What should they do?
That's a very let's unpick some of that. So first of all, I'm confident that Nottinghamshire Police, in those circumstances, would have intervened and they would have taken control of the situation and they would have made sure that people who want to protest peacefully can protest and do all of that, but without causing intimidation, harassment, alarm and distress. And of course, the use of a particular word is in certainly public order circumstances often viewed from the perspective of the person it was aimed against. So I can recall names that may not necessarily offend me, but if the same word was used against you, you might be hugely offended by it. And equally, you and I might be called a word which we take great offence to, which Eamonn wouldn't necessarily take offence against. So it all depends on what you perceive as the victim. And so it was just a very nice Labour MP giving me a kiss, who's a wonderful woman. She doesn't know we're broadcasting live, but never mind. So it all depends on what your perception is, and whether you felt threatened, offended, intimidated, harassed, whatever.
Well, I know whole communities out there who go through this every single day of their life.
Exactly.
And I can tell you now, the police do very little, even though they feel that they have been completely violated.
Exactly. And one of the things that I do here in Parliament is that I'm co-chair of the all-party parliamentary group on British Muslims. And we have just done a huge report on Islamophobia. It's not just looking for, actually talking to the community, as well as academics and as well as community leaders, but actually talking to real people who suffer what is undoubtedly racism on a daily basis. And so we came up with a definition of it, which is that it's a form of racism. And that is all part of saying to not just the police, but all aspects of any form.
So what should the police do? If somebody calls me a word that I find deeply offensive, what can the police do to that person? Most of these offences are arrestable offences, and they should be arrested. If they're not an arrestable offence, then they should certainly be investigated. And you think the police have got time for that?
if they haven't, then they jolly well must. We must make sure that they do.
And have the police had time for you? Have the police been in touch?
Being a decent, tolerant country, and that's what we must do. Sorry. Yes, yesterday was just utterly bizarre because I was almost giving a running commentary on what some of the stuff that was going on, which I was completely unaware of when I went outside. Yes, the House authorities take this very seriously. Their hands have been tied, unfortunately, by the superiors in the Met, and it's been the Met at a senior level who have said that they don't intervene. That is essentially the problem, and I'm confident that is now going to change. This is democracy we're talking. It's not about me as an individual. It's about making sure we live in an open, free, democratic society. These are the crimes that really are important, especially for the broadcasters as well.
Well, and the fact that you were the focus of all of this, and the men that carried out this abuse think they were scoring points against you, I somehow think that maybe they've lost the battle and you've won the war on.
I wish that were true, but I don't think it is.
Well, do you think that they thought the focus would be, on them against you, but it looks like it's on you against them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you may be right. I don't know. I've not really thought of it like that at all, to be honest with you. I just want to get on and do my job. And I want broadcasters and anybody else to be able to get on and do their job. And I want a more tolerant, decent society. And I'm really worried, when Sarah talks in the way that she rightly does, Anna, about what's really happening.
Anna, let me take a phone call. Just a call's come in from someone trying to do their job, a news photographer called Nigel. Nigel, you openly admit you are a Brexiteer.
I'm a Brexiteer, and I'm absolutely appalled at this person's behaviour, his attitude and his gang of thugs against Anna Soubry and anybody else. And what I would say to Anna is, Anna, it's not an offence to call someone a name. However, it's an offence to use threatening words and behaviour. And this person is intimidatory. He's nasty. He's waving his hands and fists. The way he had to go at that police officer yesterday was absolutely astonishing. And why the police are standing around and letting people act in this nonsensical, thuggish mob way is beyond belief. It's absolutely disgusting. And yes, I am a Brexiteer, but I do not in any way condone this nasty, vile behaviour by a group of thugs.
Nigel, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. I hope that's of some comfort to you, and I'm sure you've been getting many words of comfort.
There's a bunch of people outside, as there has been for a long time, supporting Brexit, standing with a bunch of people who are opposed to Brexit. They are not the problem. The overwhelming majority of people who voted Leave, Brexiteers, or the overwhelming majority of people in our country haven't got a problem. The problem is we've got a small rump of people. Brexit's lifted the stone. They've come crawling out. They feel they've got a platform, and we've got to make sure that we return our country to one that is tolerant and fair and decent, and we've got to get rid of this awful hatred and the nasty language and way that has suddenly become more acceptable. For the majority, it's not, so we need to deal with it.
And in any way that you and I are talking by phone, is there any reason at all that you didn't, in relation to these people who hurled the abuse at you, that you didn't cross that road today to go to College Green to do?
No, I went down to Millbank today, Eamonn, and I would have come over to see you and everybody else and done it in your lovely, which I'm sure are lovely studios, but I couldn't because I think we're about to vote. Literally, I am sitting outside the Speaker's office in the corridor, and I'm about to go and vote. That's the only reason.
Well, I really appreciate your time, and you've a lot of support there, and thank you very much indeed. And most of all, stay safe. Thank you very much, Anna Soubry. Thank you.
All right.